I am glad and honored to have been thought of for giving a Dharma talk. It's something that I was not expecting, but I am happy to do so. Um, so I guess I would like to start with a little bit of my background. So I spent my, I guess, my childhood in a decent home that was relatively loving, but also had its down points. But I focused and learned a lot from my grandparents who basically nourished me in the best of ways that they could with what little resources they had. I felt that I was on this wonderful path where I would be able to achieve my dreams at the time. And my dream at the time was to actually become a cardiologist. And I spent years on and off going to community college and trade programs in my teens and early 20s. However, I made some mistakes. I ended up getting involved in a relationship with an underage girl that led to a significant amount of time inside. It had been a wonderful relationship. I thought I was in love. I felt like a new man every day with her. I was so full of life, so full of life. And little did I know I wasn't me at the time. I didn't feel like something was wrong, but externally something was wrong. My relationship with this young lady led to, again, a significant prison sentence where I spent 12 years, 6 months, and 3 days inside. Saying that out loud is sort of difficult. However, part of who I am now as a man, I want to make sure that I know that I am not the same person I was before I came in. So my Dharma is going to focus on two things, my transformation and how education helped me with that transformation. When I was in county jail, I met a lot of people who were struggling and needed help. But I was in a place where, although I felt I could help, I needed to help myself first. So I chose not to engage very much. I pulled away from the drama that was inside. And I did this because I was so focused on me and getting out without thinking about how I should fix what's wrong to what led me to those actions to get inside in the first place. That was 23 months inside the county jail. And when I finally got to the reception center in San Quentin, it was a wake-up call. I remember it being extremely loud and scary, relatively dark. And I thought to myself, this is a very pivotal moment in my life. I remember going into the cell for the first time and looking at the walls that were a dull mint seafoam looking green, and then the sound of those heavy iron bars shutting behind me. That is one of the most terrifying things I've ever heard in my life. But instead of letting it, I guess, consume me, I figured, okay, it's time to make some real moves and change so I can transform into the man I should have been. This was working out well for a few days, but as my fellow justice impacted people in this group, in our community, understand, those with cases similar to mine are kind of in the lowest rung of hierarchy. And when I was in the reception center, there was an attempt on my life. I obviously survived, and I realized that there was going to be a lot of steep obstacles before I can understand why I did what I did, and how am I even going to survive these years if just in a few weeks of being inside, somebody already tried to end it all for me. And at this point, I had skills, and these skills were the way I was able to talk to all kinds of people and groups and boundaries. I was able to talk with all the various races and segregation, like segregated parts of the prison life. And for me, I talking through these people, I realized how much people wanted safety and peace. They wanted to transform themselves into better people, but just didn't have the resources to do so. I told myself that I am going to be that person to help others, despite all the negativity around me. I knew I wasn't liked, um, in the beginning, at least. That was okay. I left that reception center and made my way to Salinas Valley State Prison. I was on B yard. Everything was fine there, despite the strict nature of the facility. I did my best to get into educational programs, but it was very difficult because this was 2008 and the economy at that time was in a downturn. And the reason I wanted to get into education is because I knew that it basically would erase the feelings of being inside. Mentally, I can be wherever I would like by reading something and learning something and seeing another culture, despite being, in a sense, trapped. I did my best to get into programs while at Salinas, but it was just difficult. When I finally moved my way down to a level 3 institution, I was sent to Pleasant Valley. And at Pleasant Valley, it wasn't a very hardcore situation. So here is where I actually started to put myself in positions where I can help others. I did my best to get into a college program there, but it wasn't happening at the time. However, I bought books, college textbooks, and subscribed to magazines of all sorts. And I would share these resources with my peers and even those who didn't even seem like they would enjoy reading. I would go to the yard and bring some of my materials out, and people would look at me with the scar on my neck like, what are you doing? This is nuts. And I would just explain to them, this is how your life can change by picking up one of these and maybe learning something. And I remember seeing the faces on these guys, and the look of incredulousness where they thought I was maybe a little crazy, maybe, but I was so dead serious about helping and trying to make positive impacts that over time, the guys realized I wasn't joking. I was really serious. And it got to the point where I would meet guys from other buildings on the yard to study with them rather than do pull-ups and run the track. So I had this little group with me going, and it was fun. We learned algebra together. We learned a lot of geography through National Geographic. We talked about the most favorite foods we would love to have when that day comes, when we are released. And the look on these men's faces was almost, it was like magical. They started to change along with me in the best of ways. The way they spoke to each other was different. They would still be aggressive and protective when needed. However, what they were reading with me and the materials I shared, it it broke walls. It tore them down, really. I got to see these men and myself for what we were. This mini sort of transformation was something that I wanted to scale up, sort of like in a business sense. And when my time was up at a level 3 institution and I finally made my way down to a level 2, and I went to Valley State Prison, I realized that now that I'm medium security and medium custody, these doors are wide open for me. I will do everything I can to help as many people as I can. And saying that out loud now, and even saying it out loud back then, was incredibly transformative, because I was no longer helping others just because. I was helping others because I wanted to be a better man, and I wanted them to be better men, because I knew what it would do when these men were finally released. So it was a rocky start. It really was. When I first got to this level 2 institution, there was a mistake in my classification, and I was mixed up with another man with the last name Gonzales, and I was accidentally thrown into education with a TABE score of 4.1 rather than my earned 12.9. And this TABE score, for those who don't know, is a test of adult basic education. I was labeled as somebody with a 4th grade education in the first month. And I was like, okay, I can work this out. So knowing this, I was assigned to education in ABE1 class, an adult basic education class. Here I was surrounded by men who couldn't read, who had problems doing math, like significant issues, who couldn't even fill out their canteen slips every month. At first, I wanted to get out, but I would do the work set for the day in mere minutes. And rather than sitting there, it dawned on me that I can help these men, and I can see transformation right here in this class. So after I would finish my work, I would stand there and ask the teacher if I could walk around to help the guys. She would check my work and said, sure, if that's what you would like to do. I walked around to these men and sat with them if there was an available chair and helped them. And they looked at me like, how do you know this? Why are you here? And I would just explain to them that I want to be the change in your life where you can also be a change in someone else's life. This positive energy that I try to instill, apparently it was infectious, because I got to the point where other teachers were requesting my services in their class after I got finished with my work. And lo and behold, the classification system finally figured out I am not somebody with a TABE score of 4.1, because at the time I finally got into college classes. It just didn't make sense for them. How was this possible? So immediately I got pulled from education and thrown into the laundry room. And I was said to myself, oh gosh, this is going to be rough. However, in 3 weeks, I got pulled back into education by a teacher who wanted me to clerk for her because of what I was doing in the education program. So now that I'm back inside education as a clerk, I spent years doing college in there, um, through Coastline College, Merced College, Feather River College, and everything I learned, I would try to instill in those who are with me, my brothers inside. A lot of these men felt very alone. When one speaks to them with an open heart, with positivity, their walls would literally come down, and you could see that they just want to be okay. They want to smile and experience peace and go home to their loved ones. And I told them that if you want to go home to your loved ones and be the best you can possibly be, I think it would start with your education. We need to take this seriously. And a lot of these guys took my words to heart. And I would have groups of guys from different classes um, sit on the grass with me on my yard, and also in the education program when custody allowed it, to study for their GEDs. And it felt so empowering having these men with me, all for positive educational experiences. This led me to really understand how powerful education can be. And these men came from all walks of life, different ages. Some were really, really rough in the beginning, but over time, these walls would just evaporate, and these men would laugh with me and smile with me. But the moment that I would put myself out there and say, hey, let's do something bigger together, and they would ask me, like, what? I said, let's start some education programs ourselves. Um, that was very difficult um, because of funding and permission. However, it caught the eye of the vice principal, the principal, and custody staff in the education department. So all this positivity led to a sort of access to things. And what I mean by access is I was able to walk around from classroom to classroom, vocation to vocation, and basically cheer people on, in a sense. I would see people who wanted help, and I would help them move on to higher things. Because a lot of guys never thought that they would, ever get into a college program. So many of my peers in there earned their GEDs with help from me. And also others who, other justice impacted men who felt the calling as well. It changed so many people's lives, and the teachers were seemingly even more engaged, because now many of these men were at a point where I need this so I can get into college. And in time, I actually became a clerk for Coastline College in Fountain Valley while inside. And with this position, I was able to basically rally my troops. And what I mean by that is all the guys who were still at the prison, who had earned their GEDs, now that I had some, I guess, clout to get them into the college program, we more than doubled the college program at Valley State Prison from 2013 to 2016. This led to an unforgettable level of transformation on the yards all across Valley State, all 4 yards. Everybody seemed excited to go to school. It was the weirdest thing, but also the most happiest, joyous thing inside, because it changed the way they saw their lives. It gave them meaning, more meaning, value, and a sense of purpose. And all this was because of education. They felt that they had a fair chance now. And that's really what I wanted for them. I wanted my brothers inside to have the same opportunities as those who weren't ever inside. I feel that everyone who has a life should have a fair shot at an education, because again, it builds bridges and tears down walls. It introduces empowerment to those who choose to learn. With all that said, I paroled in 2019. And this was in May of 2019. Within 3 months, I became a student at San Francisco State University as a transfer-in junior, majoring in cell and molecular biology. There, I did my best to stay in touch with my peers inside, with permission, of course. But I also realized that people on campus needed help too. It was not a prison problem, it was a societal issue where education wasn't, I guess, as accessible as I felt it should be. Not everyone was prepared for what they had coming as incoming freshmen. And I felt that I needed to do something. So at SF State, I led study groups, and I eventually got to the point where I was offered to be a mentor. And despite having a full-time schedule academically and work, I felt that becoming a mentor would be something official where I can not only gain some more skills, but really guide those who needed help in terms of selecting classes and doing things to be that positive change in their life. Fast forward to now, I'm actually in graduate school, also at SF State, as a cell and molecular biology major. And I still continue to help others in terms of whatever they want to learn, because it is incredibly transformative. All this has led me to believe that peace can originate from very kind acts. And that is, in my opinion, incredibly, I love to use this word, infectious, because being nice to somebody almost changes the entire room. Just smiling when there's really no need to smile, it changes the space wherever you are. And I try to live each and every day with this in my head and my heart. And it all began with me deciding to hit the books and transform myself in a way that I can better transform others. I strongly believe that my education saved my life, because in the beginning of my story, I mentioned that there was an attempt on mine, but in the end, I felt so safe and so protected by all my brothers inside that I knew how I helped them. I knew how I helped them, and it was, how do I put it? It gave me safety and everyone else around me safety, because we all wanted to better ourselves, not harm anymore. And this transformation, for me at least, is an ongoing process. Each and every day, I try to do things to essentially make the world a better place. And I strongly encourage everyone and those who are around me to do the same. And yeah, so far, it's been an amazing ride in my 3 years out, but I hope to continue this journey and bring peace and accessibility to education, and most importantly, hope to those who are out here in society and also my brothers inside. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, John.